Governor, could this have been avoided? Is this the result of overzealous lawmakers or too deep tax cuts?
Well, I mean, look, the tax cut that passed the last night, created, I think, it created a structural deficit in the budget that if I was going to sign the tax cut, we had, which I did yesterday, we had to figure out how to make sure we were in good fiscal shape to keep our balanced budget and be able to deal with that. So, I mean, you would have to ask the policymakers that. I mean, that's just part of the legislative process. And, we can manage this. We're just having to make a few difficult choices on, as we said, new spending. Like, you're not going to see agencies that aren't getting money they didn't get last year. People aren't going to just get some things that they thought they might get before that tax cut bill passed the last night.
Governor Kemp, what are you most proud of this budget, and what do you wish lawmakers perhaps spend a little bit more time in allocating funds?
Well, listen, I'm very proud of a lot of things, not only in this budget, but you think back to the amended budget where we're right now, I've had people texting me for the last 7 to 10 days, pictures of their refund check that they're getting. I mean, it couldn't come at a better time in the high price environment that we're in. People are going to get property tax relief. We've got historic infrastructure projects when you think about I-75 in Henry County that are funded with cash in the amended budget. You think about the great things that we have in this budget. We were able to implement another tax cut. I mean, my goal, I know a lot of people were talking about a lot of different things coming into session, but like my goal never changed from what we promised our citizens several years ago when we passed the tax cut. I think it was back in 2022. And we promised people that we would get below 5%. We did that 3 years ahead of time, and we're down to 4.99 now. I'm very, very proud of that. And even the legislature, some of their priorities was to add on more of that. The budget today we have, we had to do a little fine tuning to make sure that we can pay for all those tax cuts, and that's just the responsibility of the executive branch. But I'm very appreciative of the General Assembly for their passionate work on a lot of good things that's in the budget. You think about literacy's fully funded in the budget. That was a big ticket item. We felt like that was a priority over some of the other things that we've had to veto or disregard. We know that was a big priority of the members, bipartisan support there, and so we had to balance those kind of things. But that's that's just part of our job. This is going to be a great budget for our state and for our citizens.
Governor, you called this, hopefully I'm not getting the words wrong, about $1 billion structural deficit. $300 million is going to be pulled back from agencies. How does the other 700 get filled?
We're trying to figure that math out.
So
let me get my statistician to answer that question.
So what's going to happen to Director Dunn? What happens now the rest of, if you can come to the mics too for us, what happens the rest of the year? Does it get filled with reserves, or are there going to be more decisions that are going to have to be made by the governor and yourself?
Well, certainly, in the amended budget, we expect some revenue growth, which will help fill that hole. The actual structural deficit is exactly $1.3 billion. We're taking care of $300 million in new spending that we're not proceeding with here. We expect some revenue growth in the amended budget over where our current budget is at. And we do anticipate, as the governor said, to have to use surplus to close that gap. The big thing we're looking at is for the next budget, FY28. We want to be sure that we have, with revenue growth, by withholding the spending, that we have the capacity to meet our growth needs in FY28 without having to go and impact existing state operations and existing state budgets.
And that whole $1.3 billion is from the tax cut or from other things?
It's from the tax cut, yes.
Governor, can you talk about some of the items in the $300 million that you're foregoing?
Well, we're going to put a list out, so I'll let you guys go through that. I think that'd probably be the easiest thing to do to keep me from being up here longer than I have time for.
Another numbers question. Is the $1.3 billion because of the incremental increase in the income tax cut and deductions?
That's correct. So the total dollars with the tax reduction that's returned to taxpayers is about $2.2 billion. We had in our budget assumed the reduction from 5.19 to 4.99%. So we've already included roughly $900 million of that cost. The 1.3 is what's remaining with the increase in the standard deductions, the inclusion or the exclusion of tips and overtime, the increase in retirement pay that's exempt from taxes. Those things are responsible for the additional cost.
So $2.6 billion in 2028?
No. So we $1.3 billion in the upcoming fiscal year. We have to cover 18 months of that because it's retroactive to January 1st. And going forward, we have roughly a $900 million hole to cover.
And I think the key thing here is for people to understand that, you know, like I could have signed the budget, not made these cuts, but it would have been a mess for somebody in the big budget next year after I'm gone. And I just wasn't going to leave the state or our next governor in that, or the General Assembly, quite honestly, in that fiscal position. So what we're doing now is making some tough choices that we've had to make. Still got a great budget. Like I said, no cuts to existing programs, just new spending that we're having to hold off on. And that'll make the 27 budget manageable when the General Assembly puts that together next year to pay for everything without having to do additional cuts.
Governor,
Last question.
you mentioned the next governor. We're hearing lots of candidates on the campaign trail talking about going to that budget surplus for specific programs, either for tax cuts or spending. What's your message to them, whoever's the next governor next year, no matter what party?
Well, I would just tell you, I'm forever grateful to Governor Nathan Deal because his last budget, he put about $3.5 billion into the rainy day fund that really didn't have much of a rainy day fund. So I came into office in a really unprecedented situation after what Governor Perdue had to go through in the Great Recession, and he managed that very well. But Governor Deal did the right thing and left a great surplus for us. Our state is much bigger population-wise. Our budget's bigger, obviously, than it was when Governor Deal left. And, you know, I feel like in today's world, we need to have a bigger cushion than we've traditionally have. So we've tried to keep our rainy day reserve fund at its maximum allowed by law. We worked with the General Assembly really over the last 3 years to spend undesignated surplus on one-time programs. Like this is the 4th time that we've sent taxpayers their money back, putting it in their pocket, helping them deal with high prices and not having to pay as much tax. We've cut taxes. We've done property tax relief. This second time we've done that. We're paid for our bond package, traditional bond package the last 2 years with cash, so we're saving the state $150 million for the next 20, 30 years by doing that. So we've done a lot of really good things with the undesignated surplus, and we did a lot of those in the amended budget this year, paying for the DREAM scholarship, a lot of other one-time spends. And so that undesignated surplus has come down. We're going to have to use some of that to shore up the budget because of the tax cut this year. And we're at our point where I think we got to be very careful to spend too much more of that and not leave the proper amount in the reserve funds. And Director Dunn and I have been very focused on making sure that we leave this state in its fiscal position as strong as we found it or stronger, and I believe that we'll be doing that.
Let's go to Richard for the last one.
It's actually two, one on, one off topic. But can you talk about, generally speaking, not specific, some of the tough conversations you've had to have with some of those lawmakers who have these programs and they're excited about it?
Well, we haven't tried to get into too many individual conversations with them because, look, every project's good. It means something to everybody. You can't go around telling everybody what you're doing because then they'll come lobby you, and, you know, it's just we just tried to be very pragmatic about what we're doing. But we've been very honest with the leadership and the members. They know that the tax cut, the last night, 3 hours or 4 hours before we signed, he died. They know it put us in a tough position to either veto the tax cut and pay for all this stuff, or either to sign the tax cut and not be able to pay for it. And, you know, I like cutting taxes. I'm proud we've done that 4 years in a row. It's a promise I made and I kept, and a lot of other members did too. Best I can remember, the tax cut had bipartisan support. And so they realize, they may not be happy, but they also realize, like, we've got a hole in the budget that we got to fix. And they may not really like that so much, but for the members that get reelected and come back next year when they're dealing with the 27 budget, they'll be thanking us for doing this.
Another off topic, I want to ask about special session. I'll let Abby do that.
Yeah. Abby's not allowed to ask any more questions.
Notice I'm not raising my hand.
Yeah.
I did want to ask, we saw a long list of bills that you cited, a very long list. Can you talk about those you don't plan on citing? Plan on vetoing,
Well,
perhaps even-
yeah, we're still working through those. We do have some that are going to be expensive if I sign them, which will play into whether I do or not. I'll just leave it at that.